It's been a while since I covered Cyberpunk 2077, and last time I did, the game really wasn't in a good place. There's this thing that happens where games get launched in a state of broken chaos, and then later down the line, they sometimes get fixed. We've seen it happen dozens of times from pretty much every single major studio and publisher, and Cyberpunk 2077 at launch seemed to be another example of releasing a product that wasn't ready, hoping that the fan base would stick it out. Well, today, with great pleasure I might add, I can happily say that the game has been redeemed. At least in my view. That's a personal opinion. That doesn't expunge the original launch condition, and it certainly doesn't mean that we are compelled to rewrite history, something that's been happening quite a bit over the past few weeks, but it does mean that we can revisit the game here and now with a massive update, overhauled systems, and a fantastic DLC expansion all at once. Let's just get this out of the way. When the game first came out, it wasn't ready. It didn't perform on previous generation consoles. There were sketchy marketing tactics, to put it kindly, that seemed to be used in deliberate fashion, and the game had foundational problems with everything from police spawning locations to generic quest functionality. I won't harp on it, and I still absolutely loved a great deal of my time spent playing back then. That much was reflected in my initial review of the game. But it was a broken mess. Things didn't work, least of all how they had been advertised, and the player base could obviously feel it. The thing is, even back then, there was a sort of consensus behind the scenes that the bare bones foundation was very, very good. The platform was there to build something special. A lot of what they had for main story beats, writing, and voice acting in particular already was kind of special. And the characters were positioned in such a way that further updated content could easily revitalize the experience in a positive way. We all hoped it would happen, let's be honest, we all sort of knew it would happen eventually. And I'm happy to say that today is the day where we can look back on what was, even appreciate it in a sense, seeing how it all changed, and discuss what I consider to be the redemption of Cyberpunk 2077. Two parts. First is Update 2.0, which overhauled gameplay systems and added a large number of features. And then afterward, Phantom Liberty, a standalone DLC expansion that adds content and meshes with the story about how one might expect when we look back at proper DLC content from CD Projekt Red in the past, such as Witcher 3 Blood and Wine or Hearts of Stone. This part is going to be odd for some people, but I'm just going to say it. The new perk and ability system is objectively better than it was on launch day. I'm not afraid to admit that, or emphasize that the changes are good, and the new framework is superior in almost every single capacity, from balancing to impact and even convenience. It feels good. However, and I can't help myself here, part of me misses the old one. Back in the day, during launch, I found ways to make some of the craziest builds you can possibly imagine. One of them hit for like 9 million damage from across the map through entire buildings, and you could just sit there and just take everybody out. Boom, 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 an entire compound. Another one constantly slowed down time and functioned around the concept of reloading for increased damage. And these builds were completely busted. Absolutely bonkers level damage and survivability, etc. But man, were they fun. That kind of thing isn't really as possible anymore. You can do similar things in a sense, and some of those things are very cool, absolutely, but I do miss the absurdity of the previous combat perk system, even if I can recognize a superior product right in front of me. I'm not going to penalize the game for it, no such thing, and maybe it's just rose-tinted glasses on my part, but yeah, the crazy flexibility of what was there before has a special place in my heart. With that said, yes, the new system is better. I haven't done all that many different playstyles yet, and I'm not finished with the game yet on my newest character. I have multiple. But the brand new system does an excellent job of placing you inside the power curve of Night City rather than above it. I've done some net running, some melee combat, experimented with cyberware on my maxed out character and a fresh one, but no matter what I do, it always feels like I'm still comparable to what exists around me in the city. One of the reasons for that is updated AI. Enemies very clearly react better and faster when the player engages them in combat. Groups will team up against you if the opportunity arises, and they'll use abilities to try and counter yours. It's better on every single level compared to how they acted before. It just is. And I also made sure to thoroughly test police combat and wanted level. Yes, I'm happy to say the police now spawn properly. They chase you in cars. The escalated wanted system is quite obviously very similar to what most other games have had for decades, but it works, and it felt daunting, yet simultaneously beatable, at least on a high-level character. NPC behavior, traffic dynamics, all of it got redone, and the results speak for themselves. I guess one of the changes that I don't necessarily like is that enemies now scale based on your level. It's not static zones anymore. And that's good, in a sense, but again, a lot of this changes the atmosphere of the game. Before, you were in Night City until you weren't. At a certain point in the base game, you would transcend the city itself and become stronger than anything else you would ever see. But now, you are a denizen of that city no matter how strong or creative you get. On the one hand, a good thing in terms of atmosphere for a lot of people. On the other, well, I have some fond memories, let's just say that. A lot of Update 2.0 can be described as simplification. Simplification of crafting, loot, NPCs, consumables, especially everything. And it makes me happy to say this, they pulled it off. Simplification is tricky, too much and you make the game boring, too little and people turn away because they can't understand it. And Cyberpunk 2077, as it exists right now today, seems to fit cleanly into that center column where complexity obviously exists, but doesn't get overwhelming, even for those who come back and drop right into a max level character. Of course, the developers recommend, and I second the motion, by the way, that you make a new character and play it through again completely, but if you opt not to do that, things will probably make sense pretty fast and you'll be back in the action in no time. Vehicle combat is pretty fun. I haven't really explored a lot of the vehicles that have their own built-in weapon systems just yet, but the economic balancing is quite good and you earn money at a comfortable pace, so that'll happen more pretty soon. One thing that stood out is how much more alive the city feels now, when there's like randomly a police car and some bad guys driving by shooting at each other. And I might have been in the minority before, I probably was, thinking that the city felt pretty alive even in the base game as well, but there's no question that the product you log into now today is better in almost every conceivable fashion. However, and I don't want to be an asshole, I'm not trying to skew this negative when it honestly doesn't need to be, but all of that said, the game still has a healthy number of bugs and glitches. Stuff pops in, people randomly assert dominance with a T-pose, objects showing up where they obviously shouldn't be, and it's not nearly as bad as it once was, that's for sure, okay? It's worlds apart. But there were like, I don't know, half a dozen times, maybe per session, where I was like, what the fuck is happening? Or where the immersion just got shattered because of a glitch. These are long sessions, mind you, 4+ hours, but it is not bug-free, is what I'm saying. Far from it. Still, I can forgive the glitches when the game has so much else going for it, and seeing that the base product is now worlds better than it was with Update 2.0, it was time to explore Phantom Liberty. This DLC is fantastic. One of the best activities so far, at least in my opinion, has been finding cars and just delivering them across the city for massive rewards. And when I say massive rewards, I mean really cool, massive rewards. Don't know why, I just love doing it repeatedly. But speaking more broadly, Phantom Liberty is an incredibly well-written story that perfectly augments the best parts of the existing game. Explaining precisely why here is a little bit tricky, so let's try this. Right at the start, the very start, the first major story beat of the DLC, I was going somewhere, and I had to get there fast. I won't show it because, spoilers, I guess. I don't really want to spoil anything. It's that good. It's not even that big of a spoiler, to be honest, but I'll try to be conscious. There's small spoilers in the background, like individual gigs, okay? So everyone who doesn't want to see that, I guess, I don't know, you can't really watch a review that doesn't have any spoilers, so you probably have to get over it. But I won't put any major, like, story beat spoilers in there, okay? So just individual gigs in the background and, like, combat scenes and me exploring, etc. Nothing huge. Back on task. The objective was to do something that obviously had to be done kind of fast. There was like an implicit timer there, but not an explicit one. There was no actual counting down number. So I played how I normally do. I was thorough. I was looking for things, jumping around, looting, fighting, and acting like the objective didn't matter. It was there, but it was there when I felt like it, not as its own independent thing. Well, that blew up in my face, because at a certain point, I just lost the mission. I get this cutscene with Johnny, and then I went on playing because I figured it was just one of those false choices maybe that the game does or has done or other games do so often. You know, like linear things where they dangle a choice in front of your face and then you end up in the exact same place either way regardless of what you choose. Yeah, one of those. I assumed it was something like that. Oh, how wrong I was. See, I had failed the DLC. Like straight up the entire thing I had failed. It took me a little bit before realizing this. Wait, there's nothing else happening. I wonder how that would have gone if I didn't ignore the objective. And voila, I went back, loaded a save, did what I had been instructed to do, the way I probably should have done it the first time, and found a wondrous new entire storyline with great writing and awesome characters. It all speaks to what I mentioned before. You are in the world, not above it. The world doesn't exist on your timeline, it exists with its own, and you get to engage with that, but I had straight up failed the DLC by pretending that I was the only important character and that the entire world revolved around me as the player. It's kind of small, I guess, but the fact that the developers created that kind of system here in this game, in my opinion, it's fantastic. Now, hiccup aside, hiccup being where I failed the DLC completely, when I actually went through as intended, it's like a 9.5 out of 10, easily. The new area, Dogtown, is like quintessential militant Badlands with amazing side quests, airdrops, and even things that I would almost consider to be like dungeons, where the organized crime activity leads to a whole compound or underground system of enemies, culminating in a unique boss. It's a little bit hard to describe all this and show without spoilers, but Idris Elba, one of the main characters in the DLC, alongside Keanu Reeves, Johnny Silverhand, chef's kiss levels of badass here. I mean, that combination is fantastic, and it helps that the writing is on point. Like, it really is. It's good writing. And that the two endings so far that I've experienced, I'm sure there's more, are both, they make sense in the world. That's the best way to put it. This DLC has one of the tougher choices that you'll probably ever make in a video game. And I don't say that lightly. It's a really, really, I don't know, you have a lot of investment. It's a really harsh choice to make. Maybe not for everyone, but even me, as someone who normally skips dialogue to get to the gameplay, even I found myself looking for opportunities to save the game so I could go back and listen to all the conversations or make all the individual different choices and see all the possible outcomes. One complaint, and yes, there are a couple things that I don't think are perfect. One complaint would be that Dogtown isn't very well integrated into the existing world of Night City. That's by design. It's walled off and hostile. There's like a big checkpoint to go in and out. That's part of the lore. I get it. But I mean like characters. You can call some of your favorite characters on the phone and talk to them about the stuff happening in Dogtown, but you don't really go back into Night City and interact with them as part of the experience. That's okay, I get it, it's a DLC, it's separate content, but when they up the entire city to level-based scaling, it feels a little bit like a missed opportunity. Maybe to like send us back into Night City at least a few times on missions that spilled over from the militant world of Dogtown into like, for example, the nice rich parts of the city. Not a real complaint, but something that seemed like it would have been cool. Bottom line, I have a lot more to do in terms of build construction. In the base game, I was able to do like 10 million damage crits and break everything, and while that seems to be a distant thing of the past now, and I do miss it, I bet there's still some crazy builds to make if I really put my mind to it. I certainly want to get all the coolest weaponized vehicles and finish out all the scripted content as well, see all the endings, etc. But for right now, it's abundantly clear that Phantom Liberty is an amazing DLC, and that Cyberpunk 2077 as a whole, with the DLC right on the heels of Update 2.0, they launched really in close proximity to each other, has redeemed itself. I don't think we should forget the, shall we say, struggles it had during and after launch, but it's very clear that CDPR have taken the time, allocated the resources, and fundamentally transformed the game with care, pushing it in a direction that is meant to live up to the initial expectations. One thing I thought was particularly eye-opening, I don't know why, but this one small thing really just, got in my brain and made me think, was that the new cybernetic enhancement system includes a chance, if you build a certain way, to gain a sort of fury state on takedowns, which reminded me of how everyone was talking about cyber psychosis before the game came out, and what would happen to your character if you enhanced yourself a shit ton with all the different, mechanized things on your body. It was cool to see, let's put it that way. Overall, it took a while, but they have actual systems now that make an honest effort to fulfill expectations, and that, in my view, is worth commenting on. Cyberpunk 2077 is in a solid position, and it's worth playing, especially with Phantom Liberty DLC. Highly recommended. That's it. If you want to support, there are links down below, in particular Patreon, locals, and channel memberships, a new merchandise partnership I'll be rolling out soon. I'm not really good at merchandise, but I'll be trying it again. I've got Agent Inc., and I'm partnering up with them, etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.